At its core, OneShot has two main versions for you to choose from. OneShot the Standard Edition, available on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and OneShot World Machine Edition, that is available on all of the previously mentioned platforms as well as most major consoles. However, because of these two options being available to purchase from the start, you might wonder which version should you really buy or which one is right for you. So this video is going to be a quick guide to explain the differences between the two versions without going into any spoiler territory, so you can expect having finished this video while still knowing nothing about the game. First of all, before we actually talk about the differences between the two versions, I think it's important to question why this World Machine Edition even exists in the first place. Is it supposed to be a remaster? Is it supposed to be a remake? Is it a sequel or even a deluxe edition? Well, the truth is, it's actually none of them. The World Machine Edition was simply made to be a console port of OneShot. This is because the original base game was never built for consoles in the first place. It was purely made for a PC exclusive experience, which is why porting to other platforms was extremely challenging. This is where the World Machine Edition comes in, as its main appeal was that it's the portable version of the main game itself. However, I think it's very important to mention that this port is not 100% perfect, as they basically had to sacrifice some very unique aspects of OneShot in order to make the game actually portable. This is why if you ask the community on which version is better, many players would agree that the Standard Edition wins when it comes to pure story immersion, as the port could just not simply replicate the magic that the original one had. But this also doesn't mean that the World Machine Edition automatically lost, because to compensate for the lesser immersion, the developers added some exclusive off-story content so that this edition has its own special thing going on. And I think it's almost specifically off-story content so that the plot of the game wouldn't really change or anything. I'm not gonna directly tell you what exactly are these new features, but they are written down on the Steam page's description. So if you're talking objectively about which one has more content, the World Machine Edition wins without any competition. On the other hand, the Standard Edition of OneShot also has some niche tricks to pull from its sleeve. For one, it's usually the choice that modders use whenever they want to tinker with the game itself. What I mean by this is how there are likely more mods, more tools, and more custom content designed to be used with this build of the game. There's also the whole other better immersion stuff that I have talked about earlier. However, I have also seen some reports that the Standard Edition has some compatibility issues, especially if you are running on Linux. So if you want a more safe option, you might have to get the World Machine Edition if there's no other choice. So I guess to summarize, if you're someone who's still confused even though you've reached this part of the video, I highly recommend you getting the 2016 Standard Edition if you have access to a device that is compatible, because I just think that this edition fulfills more of the developer's vision rather than the compensations that the World Machine Edition had to make. However, if you are someone who does not have a compatible device, or maybe you're already leaning towards the World Machine Edition due to its quality of life changes and additional content, that's still completely fine considering there are still people who have seen both versions and still prefer the World Machine Edition rather than the Standard Edition. So at the end of the day, you won't miss out on anything super major by choosing either one. Thank you for watching.